I recently purchased these Walthers Proto Gunderson Rebuilt 53-foot single well cars. Today's video we're going to do a product review and get an up-close look at these models out of the box. But before we do that, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, and while you're at it, go ahead and click the bell icon so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Hi friends, I'm Steven and this is my channel, Signal Up Productions, where I make videos all about trains. Now let's take a close look at these models. Alright, so for today's video I have 3 samples of the new release of the Walthers 53-foot Gunderson cars. We've got 3 different samples decorated, one each for the TTX with the newer logo, Florida East Coast, and I believe that was St. Mary's and Western from the newest run of the Walthers cars. So we're going to get these out of the box right now and get the camera up close where we can see them really well. So typical Walthers Proto box, the one end with the label is sealed, so open it from the opposite end. And we'll just go ahead and slide out all 3 cars and then put them on the turntable so we can have the camera go. Apparently there's some paperwork down there. And I'm trying out a new microphone, my lav mic, that I just recently got, so if the audio is acceptable or not acceptable, either way, let me know down in the comments your opinion on the audio, and I may change things with a different microphone going forward. But for today, we're going to use this mic. So we've got the paperwork with a parts list for the car. Probably don't need that. Let's see, go ahead and take this one out. And that one. So I really enjoy intermodal trains. I've been slowly building out my well car intermodal fleet so that I could have a nice long stacked train that represents what Union Pacific uses currently today. And they have a mix of 53-foot wells and 40-foot wells. I have plenty of 40-foot wells already, so these 53-foot cars will be a nice addition to my train. So let me get the camera up here closer before I get these completely out of the box. Alright, so we'll get in here and get this going here. Let's see, I think that light is okay. Alright, so we'll get in here and look at these here. So we've got those 2 out of the box already. The lid there is a normal pop-off lid on the plastic container. They are wrapped in a clear plastic wrapper. And then here we go. So you'll see on the bottom, first things up here, we've got a plastic piece that protects the trucks, keeps the model centered in the packaging. So those just pop off. Gently pop those off there. And then that makes the car basically ready to go. There's no other packing material that you have to remove. The first thing I'm noticing is the see-through walkways. That's always a nice touch. I love everything see-through. Also the see-through bottom. The car is a die-cast metal. It is not plastic. That's metal. So the nice thing about that, I'm sure when we put it on the scale, it's going to weigh very nice. Probably very close to the NMRA standard, or close enough at least. And that also is going to keep the center of gravity pretty low. So I would think that a train that is just running just these bare table trains would track very well. I don't see any obviously broken details. I do like the detail of the brake wheel there. So that's a very nice detail there. It does appear that they are using the Proto Max Walthers brand couplers. Even though this is a die-cast body, its molding details pretty nice. Even has, because this is a rebuilt car, so it's got the simulated weld lines from where it was expanded to from a 48-foot to a 53-foot car. So that's a pretty neat detail that's on there. The paint is very smooth. All of the printed lettering, pad printed lettering, is also very smooth, very opaque. I don't see any bleed through. The logos are nice. All the lettering is pretty crisp. I can read it even with my poor eyesight. So, I mean, that's really it for this car. There's not a whole lot. I mean, it's got the pins in the bottom for your containers. And we'll go ahead and put it on the scale now, and we'll weigh it and make sure it weighs what it's supposed to weigh. Alright, so we're going to weigh the car now and see where it stands to the NMRA standards. Go ahead and turn my scale on here. Let that zero out. Now this car is about 10.5 inches long, and according to the NMRA standards RP20, for HO scale, this car would be 1 ounce initial weight and then ½ ounce for each inch of body. So we'll just say a 10-inch body, that's an additional 5 ounces plus the 1, should weigh 6 ounces as it is. Put that on there. And you can see it only comes to 5.5 ounces. So that's 1.5 ounces light of what the RP20 says for a car of this length. However, I'm going to give that a pass because there's really no mass to this car where you would want it to weigh that amount, you know, compared to say like a box car or a tank car or any other car like that. And I'm certain that once we put containers in here, even one container, it would probably bring that up to close to the proper weight, 2 containers. So as this car would be loaded with containers normally, I would say that in that case it would weigh what the recommended weight is for that car, but unloaded, you may not want to have it at the front of a long and heavy train, maybe unless you're having a train that's nothing but empty well cars. Now I have done that before with these cars. Earlier in the week on the layout I did run nothing but these cars empty. I had 14 cars in total, and they all tracked very well around the layout. Alright, so the next thing we can test is the wheel gauge to see correctly if the wheels are gauged properly there. So I've got my NMRA standards gauge for wheels and track, and we will get right in there with the gauge. So you put those 2 notches when you use this gauge. There's a side that's stamped wheels. It's got 2 notches. That's where the flanges of the wheels go, right in there. And if it's tight fitting those flanges in there, it's either too wide or too narrow. If it's too wide, it won't ride correctly on the rail, and if it's too narrow, it might pick a switch. So that wheel is where it's supposed to be. That wheel also. That one as well, and that one. So that car is perfectly engaged where it's supposed to be. I'm going to go ahead and check these other 2 cars and make sure that all 3 are where they're supposed to be. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is put the car on the test track here and get the camera down low, and we'll see where the coupler trip pin and the coupler height matches on our KD gauge there. So we'll get the camera down lower so we can see that better. Alright, so here we've got our standards gauge. I'm going to roll the car up and see where we land with that. That trip pin's okay. And the knuckle is just a hair too tall. Now there's a couple ways we could fix that. We could put a overset KD coupler on there, which would lower the head down, and then put truck washers on the bolster on the trucks to raise the body up a couple of thousandths of an inch. But I'm not a rivet counter, so whenever it comes to these things, in this particular case, that's within my personal margin of error. I don't believe that that slight difference in height will be significant enough to cause me any operational issues whenever I'm running these cars. If there was a drastic change, then yes, I would make the necessary adjustments to bring that closer in line. But this is, I mean, just a few thousandths of an inch too high, and I think it'll be fine just like that. So I'm going to test all 3 cars, all 6 couplers, and see if all of the cars are that same way, or if it's just that one coupler. And if it's that just one coupler, the coupler itself might be bent on the draft on the shank, and so maybe if I replace that with an actual KD coupler, then that also could fix it. So we're going to try that out here later. But for now, I mean, that's good enough. I'm going to check the other 5 couplers. Alright, the last thing I'd like to show you is just a slight modification that I just made. I had a spare Ring Engineering EOT truck that was left over from another project, and so I'll make this the car that goes on the back of my train, and it's got the flashing rear end device right there on that KD coupler. So I just had to replace the original Protomax coupler that was in that coupler pocket, insert the KD coupler that had the EOT already mounted onto it, and then replace the truck that was originally on this car with that truck there. But I did just notice that I may actually have to take off the electronics from this truck and insert it onto the original truck that was on there, because if we can see here, we have 3 springs on this truck, so that's different than the original 2 springs that are on the original trucks. That sticks out to me a little bit, so I'm going to probably take the electronics off the Ring EOT device and see if I can remount that onto the original truck that's on there. That way it matches. But that's a nice little detail. If you have those, they stopped making those a couple of years ago due to supply chain issues. You can still find them occasionally at hobby shops, train shows, and on eBay. Because of their rarity, they are starting to get kind of pricey. So the couple that I had left over, I'm clutching my fist to, so that I got those for my own projects in the future. But you know, that's one way to have an EOT on the back of your train without having to hide the electronics in a container that would go in the well. So if you want to run an empty unit bare table train, then that's the way to do that. So we can see all 3 examples of the car around the turntable here, and I have that middle car upside down so that we can see that there's not really any underbody detail to speak of. So the brake, it's like the triple valve is there. I don't see a brake cylinder or reservoir, so there's details there lacking. Also, no coupler cut bars. No coupler cut bars on either end, and no brake pipe hoses, air hoses, any kind of detail like that. So there's no piping, nothing like that. So the detail's pretty lacking on these. I've noticed that on the last couple of Walthers Proto cars. While they're nice cars overall, and I do like the see-through walkways, there's no coupler cut bars, there's no air hoses, there's no brake piping. I do see the reservoir right there underneath that see-through grate, but I still don't see a brake cylinder anywhere. So that is interesting. But it is what it is. They are die-cast metal, so that was a selling point for me. I wanted to have a heavy car without containers in there and without having to put weights in there somewhere. So I'm happy with the die-cast. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. If you have any comments, leave those in the comment section down below. And we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.